to be there, okay, does not mean that you're okay. And sometimes it takes war to come to peace. So the thing I would like to know is, how do you fight? I've always said this, that in a relationship between a man and a woman who are in love and genuinely care about each other, if they ever fight, let them come to that fight from a position of fighting for each other rather than fighting against each other.
When you pit yourself against one another, that's where the wounds also come in
and make it worse,
and it makes it worse, and they're never gonna be healed until it is about each other.
It is about us. It has to be about us always.
Yeah, and until someone, for lack of a better word, lays their life down and prefers the other. As in, if both of them can be able to do that.
But it's the man who has been called to lay their life down.
For the most part. But the man,
as the leader, if a man lays his life down out of revelation and out of love, there will be elevation.
It's a massive responsibility to lay your life down as a man. And that's why we're talking about woundedness. That's why we're talking about crying. Because you see the paradox there. You've been given this massive responsibility, and yet you cannot cry, or you feel like you shouldn't cry. You feel like it's projecting.
First of all, is that thing. You're saying cry, but cry to who? Who said people don't want to cry?
Yeah,
maybe they want to cry,
but to who?
To who?
That's the question.
Who are you? Who you as a man? I'm asking you, Lawrence.
Yeah.
Whom do you have the freedom to go and cry to? And when did you last go and cry? And this person doesn't have to be your mother.
No, I don't think I've cried to in the presence of any man or any woman.
So for
that part.
For you don't have any pain.
No, I do have pains.
So why don't you cry?
I do have
Let's
regrets.
Let's stop talking metaphorically.
Exactly.
What stops you from crying?
I don't know.
We ask this question all the time. What makes you cry? For you, why don't you cry?
Conditioning, I think. But sometimes when I look at my life and I take a review, and I look like, I've missed the mark, I'm starting to wonder what's gonna come out of it and so on. It brings me to that point where I feel like, man, I'm gonna cry, but I don't.
Why?
And when I feel like my relationship with my wife, for example, is not the way it's supposed to be, and I'm stuck, right? And sometimes when you're on social media and you're looking at how people normally post their wives and their spouses, and they're having a cozy time, and you're like, God, this is what I want, and so on, and you're not there. It's like you're helpless.
Someone said that the jealous is the final class before witchcraft. So you might be there looking at people's statuses,
But I'm smart enough to know that sometimes what you see is not necessarily what's there. People
now pity people who don't. People who think that it's all roses and perfume because they see people's statuses.
Yeah. So for me, to be honest with you, Ngonzi, if I look back, I cannot remember. To be honest with you, I cannot remember the last time I really did cry. You got years. I can't remember. Could be. I don't know. I can't remember an incident that really broke me down. Not that there were no issues, but I cannot remember. It's just that probably I've not given myself the opportunity or the freedom, the liberty to engage in that whenever I'm going through. But the crying, what we're talking about here, the crying is the front end, right? The crying is the front end. But the question that you asked is a very pertinent question. To whom do you cry? It brings then the idea of whom are you vulnerable to, right? Who can you talk to? Even if we're sanitizing the crying, we're not necessarily talking about the crying, but let's talk about just opening up and saying, you guy, I'm in a mess to a fellow man. I'm wounded, right?
Funny that you'd say that. There's this event that we're organizing, Hearts and Shots. the Hearts and Shots meetup on 18th April, Easter Monday.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what we're about. The cause is to have a great party for a great cause of collecting books to stock school libraries, beginning with my alma mater, which is Busoga College, Mweri. Now, this is the interesting thing. People who have been coming across this event are like, man, this event is going to be a vibe. You know, I'm coming. And I'm excited. And this is an invitation to put out there to get your Hearts and Shots and books together. But you know what's interesting? That the people that this cause is pertinent to are lukewarm.
They're not warming up to it.
Yeah. And
that wounds you a bit.
It does. To be honest, I've had days I'm asking, why am I doing this if I'm doing it for really don't care? Yeah?
Is it worth it?
Is it worth it? And someone asked me, are you willing to lose everything for this? And the truth is I am. But imagine losing everything for people who don't care.
Well, you're talking about Jesus.
So that took me to the Garden of Gethsemane. As we're having this conversation, it made me think about Jesus and the Garden of Gethsemane. I can't in any way compare my agony
with him. Yeah.
But again, the pain of a tooth, the toothache is always unique to the mouth in which it is. It's a toothache nonetheless. Yeah? So here is a situation where Jesus, out of his wisdom, finishes his meal with a crowd, with his group, and then takes a few of them who, in his mind, at least would understand him. And he takes them to Gethsemane and says, stay here and tarry with me. Stay here and pray with me. So first of all, he separated out of his many friends. He took the few guys who he trusted that, you know what, these guys got my back. And then get what he did? He left them, and then going a little bit further, threw himself down in agony and cried. And I don't know, but this picture of Jesus, the Lamb and the Lion, the great King in agony, for me, the cross. It's one of those things that makes me love my Jesus. Yeah. Or that makes me relate with him more as a man. That he went through that loneliness that purpose might take you through. Do you understand that? There is no one of significance. There is no one whose life is to be lived for significance and grand purpose beyond themselves, who does not go through a wilderness Gethsemane experience for them.
Yeah.
Because you know what's interesting? That the people that God is going to use to reach many people, they have to go through a space where they are alone. I don't understand that thing.
Yeah.
And then the ones who have nothing to offer in the world will never feel alone.
Yeah.
The crowd of fools.
Yeah.
The crowd of cowards.
Yeah.
Will never feel lonely as much. Yeah.
Yeah.
As a shepherd would feel. So here is the situation. Jesus says, stay here, tarry with me. And guess what? He goes ahead to pray. And you've seen the prayer he prays. He said, if it is possible, let this pass. Sometimes men have to deal with things where they're like, if it is possible, I wish I could die.
I want to come back from the break, and then we just pick up from that personal Gethsemane experiences with men. Gonna be back, guys. Our goal is to be a resource point of growth and safe space where men who are struggling can find a hug. Man can talk to man and become as iron sharpens iron, changing the countenance of his friend. And we want men to be there for each other in this treacherous journey that is a man's life. No man should struggle in the dark alone, and we intend to work with men who we view as wounded warriors to get back to their identity, to discover their innate potential as men, as husbands, as fathers, as leaders, because we believe that if the manhood challenge is solved in our generation, half the world's problems will also be solved.
Going up, their riders smoother sliding down. I'm wondering what they did right. They genuinely look satisfied, not a single care in the world. Not really think they have it all. I just wanna have more than 1 meal a day, eat my fill and have some food to spare. I just wanna have just a little bit more.
Well, from the break, so we are talking about the Gethsemane experience, and we are taught actually later on, because we've been talking about crying. I think there's another portion of scripture that says he offered up prayers and groanings that cannot be quantified in words. He cried, basically.
Mama.
Yeah, he did cry. So I wanted to tell you this, that earlier on you say that no person who is going to have a grand purpose and whatever it is will fail to go through a Gethsemane experience. But I wanted to ask you this question. Don't you think that invariably men, even women, but we're talking about men in these episodes, they go through that the Gethsemane experience about their manhood occasionally? Because Jesus was there and he was feeling the heaviness of the responsibility of his calling, and the man sometimes feels the heaviness of the responsibility of his calling as a man, right? He's a father, he's a husband, he's a CEO, or whatever it is. He feels like, maybe I'm not enough. We talked about imposter syndrome the other day. Maybe I'm not enough. Don't you feel like these are mini Gethsemane experiences that men normally go through, and those ones are the ones that they're supposed to come up and share and get relief?
As you're asking that question, allow me to share this personal experience on behalf of my father. In 2001, my parents had a situation where the school that they had been teaching, Msoga College Mwe, some people in the administration said some things about them, and my parents, together, some other teachers had to be forced out of the school, and they were given 3 weeks to find where to go.
Vacate?
Yes. And they were posted to some random spaces, like
from Kampala to Yumbe,
that kind of thing. Yeah. And I'd been on holiday. I hadn't been home that holiday, so I didn't really know the things that were happening. And I come home from my holiday, and I found my dad at the side of a house at about 2-3 in the afternoon, and he was seated on a stool with his head in his hands.
Whoa, what a sight.
I'll never forget it.
Yeah. Reminds me also, okay?
And I came and greeted him. I entered the house. Then a few days later, it hit me what was going on. Because I had been away. So now it hit me. And my father had a week to move his household out of the schoolhouse and move into his unfinished house, which was not roofed, was not closed, It was a shell house.